Now we'll dive into the second layer of our tool analysis framework and examine your options for data extraction, transformation, and loading for subsequent analysis. As we discussed in our first course, Introduction to Data Analysis, extracting, cleaning, and preparing data often takes up the bulk of your analysis time. Thankfully, there are tools to help on this front as well, many of which are free or open source. Let's take a look. On the simpler end of the scale, FME, or Feature Manipulation Engine, helps you connect applications to extract, transform, and integrate a huge swath of very different kinds of data. While it's not free, it does have desktop, cloud, and on-premise options, and its real power is in all the preset transformations it includes, especially for geographical data. WinPure has been around for over a decade, likely due to the fact that its data cleansing software is incredibly user-friendly and doesn't require any development or specialized experience. It's priced comparably to the Microsoft Office suite and also has an enterprise service-oriented pricing model as well. DataLadder has very similar options and pricing models. And last but not least, it's Excel again. Now you might be thinking after the strong words in that last section, what is this doing here? Well, the reality is that Excel can be, and often is, used for data cleaning. It's not ideal, it's certainly not the most efficient approach, but as we said in the course on data communication, part of an analyst's job is to do the most that she can with the time and tools she is given. And if all your organization can provide is Excel, we'll bet you're doing everything you can to become an expert in writing scripts to help with basic cleaning actions like finding blank cells, transposing columns, and deleting irrelevant data. It's also worth noting that Excel 2016 comes with a new set of features called Get and Transform, which help you connect, combine, and refine data sources to meet your analysis needs. Microsoft's Power BI is probably the most well-known in this space, especially for the breadth of data sources it has available to connect to and use. Trifacta's Wrangler product is the offshoot of an open source project that started at Stanford. If you're not familiar with the term open source, hang tight for a minute and we'll cover it in a bit more detail. It's now a paid product, though you can download a free trial. Wrangler's desktop offering has a more sophisticated user interface and incorporates machine learning to make predictive suggestions for data transformations. It's geared towards working with bigger, more complex data sets and has integrations with relatively sophisticated and large-scale analysis tools like Hadoop, which we'll cover a bit later. And there's an enterprise version as well. Data Cleaner has remained an open source product and has an active community. That said, you're more on your own when it comes to installation, use, and troubleshooting. Hence, this is a tool that's best used in an environment that offers at least some form of development IT support. The workhorse of the middle ground, Pentaho, is probably best known for its data integration capabilities, and it has a friendly visual interface that doesn't require any programming experience to use. At its simplest, open source software, often abbreviated OS or OSS, is software with source code that anyone can inspect, modify, and enhance. Start by thinking about it this way. If you own Microsoft Excel, can you go look at all the code that is written to help you use your spreadsheets? It turns out you can't. That software is proprietary, meaning only the company that created it has access to it, and users had to sign licenses to not use that software in any way other than how its creators intended. This is how a vast majority of consumer software was until the 1990s. Since then, there's been an explosion in open source software projects, and that gives developers and users significantly more control over software they choose to use. One common misconception is that open source also means the software is free. In fact, open source developers can charge money for the open source software they create or to which they contribute, but often because an open source license might require them to release their source code when they sell software to others, some programmers find that charging users money for software services and support rather than the software itself is more lucrative. As a result, more open source software is still free or inexpensive, but you still need to account for additional people, time, and money on your end. A common comparison for open source software is that it's like getting a free puppy. There are some downsides, of course. Because open source software is written and maintained primarily by volunteers, if someone quits and no one else takes it up, a software project you rely on could be abandoned. And you are also at the mercy of how conscientious the developers are about security, because malicious users can review the code and look for exploits and vulnerabilities. Unfortunately, many of the very public security breaches have been related to organizations not keeping their own open source software up to date against potential vulnerabilities. Most still feel the benefits outweigh the risk, which is why there's been an explosion in open source software over the past couple of decades.